While in Athens, we take a tour on a bus for a few hours through the heart of the city, passing some old buildings such as the Academy. It's 100 years old. It looks like it's 2,000 years old, built in the classical Greek style. But most of the buildings in Athens are from the 20th century, and while they are rather plain, rather drab, it is a very interesting city. It's a city that functions extremely well. It has a real pedestrian orientation. There's many shops in the heart of the downtown area with wide sidewalks. There are large zones that are for pedestrians only, and there's a lot of sidewalk cafes and interesting small boutiques scattered every place in the heart of downtown. There are many beautiful buildings. There's the Meridian Hotel, a very fine spot to stay right in the heart of town at Syntagma Square. Also, you'll find here the Gran Bretagna Hotel, which is one of the finest in the entire country. And all around Syntagma Square, you have these wonderful little side streets with shopping arcades and cafes, interesting things to buy, interesting things to look at. And now we'll be driving along Athena Street, going from Monastiraki to Omonia Square. There's many squares in town that have clusters of cafes and shops all around them, making for a real fascinating and livable urban landscape. The pace of life here is slower than you'll find in the large Western European capitals like Paris and London, and with that slow pace comes a certain friendliness and an enjoyment of the daily routines of life. And in the evening, everybody likes to go out to the bars and tavernas, particularly around the Placa. Now we're driving towards Stadium Street, passing more of the shops, the dense concentration of pedestrian malls, and above there's offices and some apartment buildings and a few hotels scattered through this neighborhood, which is mostly a local shopping district. You don't even see many tourists in this kind of neighborhood, which makes it particularly attractive for us on our Hawaii Geographic tours to get a look at it and spend some time to walk through it. We like to stay in Athens for at least 3 nights, which gives us time to see the main tourist and historic sites, such as the museums. Here's the Natural History Museum and the Archaeological Museum. And of course, in Athens, the main attraction is to visit the Parthenon. But then, too, you want to have some time of free time, just to wander about, take a bus, take public transit. Here we are passing the Academy again, named after the ancient school of philosophy and learning set up by Plato. Plato was convinced that his utopian republic would have to be ruled by well-educated, enlightened nobles who would have physical training and mathematical training and study ideas, study history and philosophy, and only after 30 years of such training could they then become active leaders of the society. And to a large degree, this is the approach we have developed in our modern world. Today's Greek leader lives in a palatial mansion we're about to visit, guarded by a ferocious cat. And more famously, the mansion is guarded by these colorfully costumed fellows who march up and down out front all day long with a special ritualized changing of the guard every half hour. Just because they wear stockings and miniskirts and walk funny doesn't mean these guys are sissies. They're tough. They're always over 6 feet tall and generally ruggedly handsome guards. And they've got loaded guns. So don't make fun of these guys. They're part of the colorful tradition of the country, protecting their prime minister and putting on a show for the tourists, attracting a crowd every day. And it's a casual, friendly setting where you can get close, complete with garden pets. Our friend is leading us through an acantha forest. Notice these beautiful green leaves called the acantha. This is the leaf that the ancient Corinthian capital was modeled after. You recall the 3 classical orders. The Doric is the plain column, The Ionic is the column with a scroll for a capital, and the Corinthian is the more elaborate with the acanthal leaf as its capital. Passing now Hadrian's Gate, which was the entrance to the ancient Roman agora, or market town, here in the heart of Athens. Another view of Hadrian's Gate and the great temple behind it that was completed by the Emperor Hadrian himself. It was the largest temple in all of Greece. Columns 135 feet tall.
It's the Temple of Zeus. This is in the Roman agora. It's attributed to the Emperor Hadrian, and as you can see, it's Roman from the bricks.
And then we pass through the gateway to the Acropolis, through the Propylaea, up on top of the mountain overlooking the city.
Entering through the ceremonial gateway, our first vision is of the Parthenon, the most perfect temple in all of ancient Greece. 2,500 years old and still standing. It's by far the most popular tourist attraction in Greece.
And we come to Parthenon, which is the masterpiece of the antiquity. So we can say that the Acropolis was the religious center of the antiquity. And always next to the religious center, they had the center of their political life. If you will have a look down below to the right, you see some ruins that they belong to the ancient agora. The word agora is the marketplace. So that was where they had the shops, that was where they would meet their leaders and their politicians. And what makes our agora such important is that beautifully preserved temple that you see there. The best preserved temple of the antiquity that keeps the inside wall, the outside columns, and the roof.
We're now visiting the Acropolis and the incredible Parthenon temple. This is one of the highlights of your trip to Greece.
So, as we said, up here at the Acropolis, we have had the temples of the gods and all the monuments that we admire. They go back to the 5th century BC. And I believe that impresses more the ears of our guests when we say 2,500 years ago. It was done by two architects, Iktinos and Kallikratis. They succeeded to give us the impression that all the lines of the temple are horizontal and vertical. And in reality, nothing is horizontal, nothing is vertical. They have used some optical illusions. And the architects, they say that if we prolong those columns with our imagination, they will meet somewhere up there and we will have a pyramid.
And around the Acropolis, there are some other interesting ruins. The Theater of Dionysus, where drama began, the temple with the caryatids.
Also at the top of the Acropolis is a small museum that has a very important collection of the original sculptures that were on the Parthenon.
And we see another pediment of 6th century.
These heads are from the Archaic period, as are many of the pieces in this small but beautiful museum up on the Acropolis. And more sculptures from the Archaic of the 6th and 7th century BC, which preceded the classical period.
You can see the body through the light dress, all the details of the body. And this dress here looks like silk. Look how realistic are the horses. Look at the veins. And they are doing a little gossip on their way up.
The statues in the Acropolis Museum were all found on the site of the Acropolis itself during the various excavations over the years.
Well, it's nice to have a guide to walk us through and tell us about these various statues, the Chori, a 5th century horse from the studio of Phidias, and a reconstruction of the pediment from the Parthenon. Then we go back out onto the site. And there's several other small temple sites at the top of this beautiful hill of the Acropolis in Athens, in Greece. A view of the Theater of Dionysus, perhaps the oldest of the classical theaters in Athens, and the crumbling remains of the Parthenon. Here's the only original metope, the wall frieze still in place on the Parthenon. The rest of them have been taken to London, where they're on exhibit at the British Museum.